Okay, so welcome to chapter 9, where we're going to talk about food and hunger. So we've talked about population growth and different ways populations grow exponentially, then logistically, etc. We applied all that content to human population growth and what's going on with the human population. And again, the concerning thing with the human population is we are growing exponentially, and what's going to happen when we hit that 8 to 10 billion in most likely in our lifetimes, will we have the resources to support everybody? So that's our concern. So again, remember, I'll see if I can find a spot to draw it here. Exponential growth, you're going like this, and then all of a sudden rapid increase, and you go up. And normally, when you get close to carrying capacity, this is the line that's supposed to represent carrying capacity. Not a straight line, but somewhat of a leveling line. Normally, when you hit carrying capacity, you just kind of level off and go into this logistic growth. But if the populations overshoot way too far because they don't have, oh, that line's light. Sorry, they don't have limiting factors, and they're way over the carrying capacity, then there's often a fast drop. So that's our concern with, can we produce enough food to support the human population as it continues to grow? All right, so here's some numbers here. Over the past 40 years, so think about your parents. They've seen this happen in the course of their lives. Population growth has averaged 1.7% increase per year. So that's what our population has grown. Food production has increased on average 2.2% per year. So we've actually made more food than the amount of people that we've added. So that's all positive. Yeah, we're producing greater amounts of food, more food faster than the population's growing. Sounds great. We are, what it appears, we are above, our carrying capacity is still above where the population's at. But environmental concerns are, what happens when we hit the carrying capacity? Can we level off the human population? So go back to that chapter when we talked about human population. How do we get it to slow down? We talked about China's challenge with the one-child policy, things like that. All right, so here's numbers. Well, a few more numbers for you to definitely pay attention to. Okay, now hint. Global calorie consumption is roughly 3,000 kilocalories a day. Okay, so that's about the energy that people are consuming a day, average. More developed countries, we tend to average about 3,500 calories a day. Do we need that many calories is the big question. Is that healthy to consume that many calories a day? All right, so hopefully Malthus sounds familiar. We talked about Marx and Malthus. I would again encourage you, go back and make sure you're comfortable with what are those guys talking about with population and poverty, and how do those two things work hand in hand. So Malthus came up with this idea about population growth, and as it grows, the population grows. Do the resources grow quick enough? If not, you hit this thing here called point of crisis. Uh-oh, your population's growing faster than your resource production. Basically, this is the idea is this is your carrying capacity, and your population's overshot it. Can your carrying capacity increase? Possible. With technology, with new developments, maybe we can increase the carrying capacity. We've done it. We've gone from 100 bushels an acre on corn to 250, 260. But at what point do we hit that point of crisis? So I want you guys to think about, how do we avoid the population growth smashing into the resource line and creating a huge problem? Is there a way to either do this with the population growth and kind of bring it like this so it doesn't hit that point of crisis for many, many years? Because keep in mind, down on the bottom here, we would look at this as time. It takes years for this to grow. So the longer we can stretch it this way, the longer we have before we do hit the point of crisis. Or can we increase this and bring this line of resource production up higher? So then the point of crisis doesn't get hit until the population gets bigger up here in this example. Or later, can we do both? Can we stretch out, slow down the growth of the population and increase the resources? Then we take a lot of pressure off of our planet. But can we do that sustainably and ecologically sound? So, okay, so here's some of the things we want to consider. About 1.5 billion people, that's the entire country of India, or roughly the entire country of China, live on less than $1 a day. All right, $1 a day, $7 a week is all they make. That is a huge issue when you're trying to find food, when you're trying to have what we call food security. And I know people in the US struggle, but it's nothing compared to what we see in some of the developing countries around the world. $1 a day, how do you even buy bread? How do you buy grain? How do you buy anything with $1 a day or less than $1 a day? So that creates some significant challenges to provide healthy amounts of food and healthy varieties of food for yourself, your children, your family. So here's the map when we look at hunger around the world, percentages. So in the United States and Canada, we are in the less than 5%, less than 5% of our population suffers from hunger. And there are people that do in the US, and I'm not trying to make light of that at all. But as a country, we have a very small percentage of our population that suffers from hunger. Check out Western Europe. Very few people there suffer from hunger. But as you get into the rest of Europe, most of Asia, notice your numbers go up. India, 20 to 35% of their population suffers from hunger. That's close to 500 million people. There's more people in India suffering from hunger than people in the United States as an entire country. So we start looking globally and we go, okay, a lot of these regions where we have developing countries, they suffer significantly from hunger. So when we look at hunger, there's some different causes for it. Causes for famines and problems. So a lot of social and political issues are tied to famine. There are environmental, but a lot of times it's social and political. So a famine is when you have a large scale food shortage. Usually there's massive starvation, social disruption, economic chaos, your country is in a tailspin, and everything's crashing. So what this does is it often leads to people migrating. Get the heck out of here. There's no food. It's chaos. We're under threat. We may not survive. Let's go. Let's get out of this country. So now you have emigration issues. And then other countries nearby deal with immigration issues. You got tens of thousands of people sometimes crossing the border into a neighboring country. Can that neighboring country absorb those people and help support those people and provide opportunity for those people? Or does that cause social and political friction in that country? Sometimes environmental conditions are the immediate trigger. Okay, you had a drought 2 years in a row. Your crop yields have gone to nothing, and you don't have food reserves. You don't have the money you don't have the money in the bank account to support you during this problem. All right, now let's start seeing the social, political, etc. starts collapsing because of the food issues. Climate change is causing this to happen more often. It's the trigger that's causing these famines to become more common and more widespread. So the challenge is trying to avoid those things and try to minimize those things. We tend not to see that in developed nations. We see the exact opposite in developed nations. In a developed nation, a challenge we're facing is obesity. too much food, too much energy in the form of food that is available for us. And sometimes, and we're all there probably, we have a poor diet. We don't eat healthy. So here's some scary numbers. Developed country, the United States, 64% of the adult Americans are classified as overweight. 33% of the American population is considered obese. Now, don't add these two together to get 97%. 33% are obese. Those same people are also classified as overweight. So that's where we get this total number here. 20% of the general population is over their ideal body weight. So again, the challenge is, how do we figure this out? How do we, manage this? When we look at this thing called BMI, I'll get to that in the next slide here. BMI is a general measure of body weight. So globally, when we look at global population, 604 million adults in the entire world are classified as obese. 108 children are classified as obese. That's a scary number. That's a huge number. And that's a huge concern for the global health, or the health of the global human population. And what we're seeing is traditionally obesity and overweight was always tied to developed countries because you had the money, you had the resources, you could afford the food. But we're seeing that trend starting to grow in developing nations. And that's where it gets scary, is these countries that don't have the medical resources to take care of people are starting to have obesity issues. And that's very problematic and very concerning. So BMI, what is it? How do we calculate BMI? BMI is taking your weight in kilograms, dividing it by your height in meters squared, and it gives you a number. So what we look at here is trying to calculate BMI. Where are you at with your BMI? Okay, so I jumped out to this hyperlink for a BMI calculator through Mayo Clinic. You can Google it, there's plenty of them out there. But just to give you an idea, say you have an adult male, and I'm just going to make up numbers. Person is 5 feet 10 inches. Let's say they weigh 225 pounds. Their waist is, somebody that size, probably a 37-inch waist. And boom, there you go, 32.3. According to the BMI calculator, that person is technically obese. So our concern here is, if you're obese, you're on that obese scale, what kind of health problems are you going to have with that? What other health issues will you have with being classified technically as in the obese category? Now, don't freak. BMI is a general measure. There are people who can be that big and be very, very healthy. So it's not a end-all, fits everybody like a glove type of calculator. So to give us a general idea, the better way of looking at this, what is your fitness level? Do you get out of breath doing general activity? Is it a struggle to get up the stairs and things like that? But again, the concern is when we look at the health issues associated with a high BMI, it's problematic and it's concerning for us. So we have different ways of trying to manage this. And this is what the USDA and different government agencies do, is they try to create healthy ways to eat. So here's the food plate. Do you have fruits and vegetables on your plate making up over half of what you consume? Grains and proteins and dairy in certain amounts to try to create a balanced diet. So our challenge is educating people about ways to stay healthy with eating better foods, higher nutritional foods, not junk foods, and trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So we'll talk more about this in the next lecture.